We're recording. You're listening to the Tune Up and Jam podcast. Ready? Go.
This is episode number 29, right? 29 sounds right. Tune Up and Jam.
Tune Up and Jam.
All right, tune up, turn up, get down and jam. Welcome and Nabata.
What language is that?
That is, and the language is Igbo.
Huh? From where?
Igbo.
Okay, where's that?
I don't know. I just found it, and it's Igbo. I-G-B-O is the language. It's spelled N-N-A-B-A-T-A. Maybe it's Unabata. Maybe it's Nunabata.
From Nigeria.
Nigeria? Okay, so it's an African
That's
language?
that's what Wikipedia says,
Okay, then.
if you believe Wikipedia.
Igbo from Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Okay. Igbo is the language, obviously. Or is it Igbo people?
Yeah,
people.
I think it's the people.
With
Well, people
Igbo
and language, maybe. Yeah.
People and language, yeah. Kind of like Chimuran, right?
What?
Chimuran, is that just the language or the people and the language?
Chamorro.
God, sorry. Chamorro. There's no Chimuran, right?
I don't know. If
Chamorro?
they are the one to defend anyone if they do exist. But Chamorro is different, yeah.
Chamorro is both the people and the language?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, got it. So maybe Igbo follows the same rule. See? This is what it's all about, learning new things, man. It's not just about, being focused on one thing. You got to open up and learn a bunch of stuff about this world.
Get your learn on.
Yeah, Igbo. Nabata. Okay, anyway. Tune Up a Jam, episode 29. This is the last of the welcomes, by the way. I'm going to move on to something different in the 30s. Don't know what it's going to be yet, but we'll figure it out next time.
Yeah.
So here we are once again with no Chris.
No,
We
Chris.
keep bringing it up, but that's how it goes when you have lots to do and can't make it to certain things. You miss out on fun.
Yeah, because he's not having fun.
He's not having fun.
If he's not here, he's not
Not
having
like
fun.
we are.
Yeah, we're having a blast.
Yeah. I can't imagine anything being more fun than being here with you, Francis.
Right.
So anyway, tune up and jam. What are we going to talk about today?
Right now.
I have something, one or two things,
You do?
at least one thing. What about you? You know anything?
Let's see. I got a gig coming up doing world music. Actually, mostly it'd be Indian music. It'd be Indian music, yeah. And that's an interesting thing. I don't know obviously don't know the language, and the songs.
Hindu language, right?
Hindu. I think technically, most of the songs are in Urdu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, probably butchering that pronunciation, but anyways, doing it for a friend.
What's the
It'll be a lot of
occasion?
fun. I believe it's for a wedding.
A wedding.
Yeah, wedding. Play a lot of Indian music and
So what are the instruments that are going to be involved in this?
harmonium,
Uh-huh.
tabla, and guitar. Aside from the vocals, of course.
Describe
Instrumentation.
to maybe people who are listening who wouldn't know what a harmonium or perhaps
It
what
is.
a harmonium
It
looks
looks
like or sounds like.
It sits on the ground. You sit down, and it's like imagine like a mini piano or a keyboard. That is the sounds generated by a pump, like an accordion style.
Mhm.
So you actually have to work I don't know what the technical term is, but the pump to generate the sound, and as you play the keyboards. As you play the keyboard, it's a single keyboard that you can shift keys by. There's a setting that you just lift a couple of levers and move it around, and you're actually in a different key. You can change the key.
What does it sound like? What is it similar to?
Very similar to a. What did I just say?
Accordion?
Accordion.
Yeah. it is.
Not too far from an accordion, because
Yeah, it's kind of got that kind of nasally type sound to it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Or Actually, not quite as nasally as like a bagpipe or anything, but it's
No,
just like a different. Yeah. What was the other one you said?
Tabla.
Tabla.
Tabla. That's the percussion, the drums.
Mm-hmm.
The drums, like.
So there's only
Oh.
3 of you, or is there?
No, it's the 3 of us as far as the instrumentation and whoever the vocalists are.
And how many songs you have to learn?
I would say not too many. I'll probably be playing in the neighborhood of 10.
Is it like traditional songs?
Yes, it's traditional songs, and then there's songs that date back to old Indian movies, probably from probably the 40s, 50s, 60s.
And have you ever heard these before this gig?
No, I mean no. There was probably one. I had done a similar gig probably a year ago, and there was a couple songs that
Indian?
were familiar. Yeah, but
But none of these songs are the same ones that you learned before.
I was like maybe a couple.
Oh, okay.
Maybe a couple, but I have to say it's one of the things about the guitar. It's a truly universal.
Pretty versatile.
It's a universal instrument.
Yeah, because
Love
like,
it.
isn't some of that Eastern music, and I'm pretty sure like in Indian music they also have sitar.
Yes.
But you're not playing. Obviously, there's no sitar in this.
No.
But
No, I wouldn't know where to begin.
But it's interesting because in the guitar, well, you know all the Western scales basically, and
Right.
we basically have whole tones and half tones.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're talking about Eastern music, there's those quarter tones.
Yeah,
And so
for these
dealing
group
with
of
any
songs, for these group of songs, we're not really dealing with quarter tones at all.
Mm-hmm.
We're dealing with typical. I should say, similar to Western scales.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what about like the rhythms?
Yeah, it's very unique. I mean, I wouldn't know how to. I'm not well versed in this, so I'm not the one to give a description. But if you're familiar with the Indian tabla, I mean, if you just go look up Indian tabla and listen to the type of rhythms that are usually played, in that with that instrument, you'll find it pretty cool.
Would you say that they're more like pattern based on patterns, or is it based on can you play just by simply counting the way we would count 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4?
Oh yeah, you can count like that, and especially some of these songs, if they're from movies, they're not going to be some crazy, out there, like with minimal structure. But these songs are playing, they're structured in a way that any Western musician could pick that up.
Okay.
But as far as the tabla concerned, there's a whole system of counting that is so different than the Western thought that it's something that maybe one day we can get into.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
that reminds me of when I was in college. I played in Indonesian.
mm-hmm.
There's a type of ensemble from Indonesia. It's a percussion ensemble called gamelan.
Mm-hmm.
Gamelan. Gamelan, Indonesian music, and it's all percussion. And there's several different instruments that are played. There's these they look like pots. It looks like you're hitting pots with the lids on them.
Yeah.
And it looks like you're hitting the lid. And there's like ours, I think we had about a dozen or maybe 14, maybe not even that many, 10 to 12 people in our ensemble. And you sit on the floor, you play on the floor. And so most of the people play these pots. I can't remember what they're called. Pots is not the right word for them, obviously. And you hit them. They're not with like regular drumsticks. There's like these kind of thick wood, short wood, like rods that you hit with.
Don't you love this?
Not doing very good.
Here's the
with
thing. Here's a couple of Western musicians describing other.
Yeah,
like,
and this was back in college, so I have no.
Well, my point was that the guitar is such a versatile instrument. It can be heard and used in so many styles around the world that it's I'm glad I've that was my instrument of choice.
Yeah.
I know
Well-
you're regretting that. Not taking
Yeah,
anything.
well, I totally regret not
Because
playing
drums,
guitar.
are
Yeah,
hardly heard
yeah.
around, are hardly.
yeah, yeah. But what I was saying about the gamelan thing, besides whatever the instruments were, yes, the tones were completely different,
Right.
but the counting was completely different too.
Mhm.
Like depending on what instrument you are, you counted differently, but it was always a cycle, and it was always based on. So some people would play a cycle of 8, some people would play a cycle of 16, some people would play a cycle of 32.
Mhm.
And it was like a gong that played 32, and you had to count. Everybody counted something different, but they all met eventually on a 1, and then it like kind of spread out, and it sounded. It was together. Everything was together, but there were so many different patterns going on, and then eventually it would come back to a 1, and then everything would bounce back out again. It was really interesting. So does the music that you play in this, does it do anything like that?
No, not like that. On the different counting, I was trying to remember this. There's this DVD I have. It features John McLaughlin explaining some Indian rhythms that he has, experienced with his band. Well, he if anybody knows anything about him, he had a band called Shakti many, many years ago. Then they reunited for Remember Shakti, and he's played with an amazing tabla player, Zakir Hussain. But there's some rhythms that he goes into. I forget the name of. If I remember, I'll let you know. I'm trying to look it up, but it explains this counting system. With that they could vocalize. So like 1 would be, I believe it's ta, and 2 would be taka, and 3 would be takita.
Mm.
So you would have this takita, takita, taka, takita, takita.
Mm-hmm.
That way of vocalizing it. And when you hear some of these players get into like very quick rhythms or these vocalizations, it sounds pretty amazing how they could translate that to syllables. But it to some people who are not familiar with that, it might sound like gibberish, but in reality, they actually are vocalizing certain patterns that you'll hear the somebody vocalizing that, then you hear the tabla player repeat that, or follow that, or they have like a call and response. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But no, we're not doing anything like that. I just thought I'd bring it up that that there is another counting system that it's interesting to learn, and I've kind of.
Have you played where you've had to learn other counting systems? Like when you did it before, did you have to do anything like that? Like
No. The types of rhythms that we're playing are pretty straightforward.
Because when I did it in this other ensemble that I did, I found it was really helpful. Well, not just helpful in listening to other people, what they're doing as far as how they're counting and where they are in the music, but also just learning a pattern that was not in any. It did not sync with everybody else, except for on 1 or 2 places, and being able to play that pattern. Because really, that's all it was it was continuous patterns over and over again, but it was a long pattern. And I was kind of like out on an island with what I was playing, and I would come back, which basically everybody was. But it was really interesting, and it helped me to be able to kind of do my own thing every once in a while, away from, as long as, let's say you have a solid rhythm section. As long as you have a solid rhythm section, they can hold something down. You can kind of like veer off for a minute. You don't want to do it all the time, and just kind of do something that isn't. It's a little bit out there, but
polyrhythmic
stuff, or some strange rhythm that doesn't really, on the surface, kind of seem like it's going with the jam that's happening at the moment, but you can bring it right back to the down, the 1. At some point, at some climax, right back to it. And it helped me to be able to do that, like apply it to like a jam session or, a solo jam, whatever's happening. And I thought that was interesting. So go on.
It just came to mind. The Gateway to Rhythm. So that's the name of anyone's.
Gateway to Rhythm.
The Gateway to Rhythm, John McLaughlin. So if anyone wants to look up that video, I'm sure there's probably excerpts on YouTube
Yeah.
or something like that.
That sounds
That
cool.
they get into they break it down on how they do the counting,
Neat.
and it's interesting.
And while
So-
you're at it, look up Indonesian gamelan music as well. It's pretty cool.
Cool.
So
So, anyways,
so that was what I got out of that kind of. What have you gotten out of this so far? Like anything that you think you might apply?
well, I mean, I already talked about how I approach learning songs, but in the case where most of this is foreign to me, I just have to stick to the basics as far as seeing how I could structure the songs. Where are there logical, for lack of a better term, verse, choruses, pre-choruses, and I just have to break it out into the parts that make sense to me and label it as such. In certain phrases where I would just have to hear or make note of the first lyric, maybe of a part as a cue. Just little things of trying to see where, how it's all structured, and of course the keys, if there's any key changes, and what do they do. There's certain lines that are key to the song that are, some riff that makes the song, what it is. These are the ones that, of course, I'll learn those lines, and then other ones where I feel it's just kind of loose improvisation. Maybe I'll just do something else, and I won't have to focus on that. So I have to, pick my time. Approach it carefully. And not spend time doing something unnecessary, like hearing the songs and learn any melody I hear, learning it note for note. Where if it's just really an improvisation, then I'll improvise over that. But if it's key to the song itself, if it's key to the melody, then of course those are the ones I focus on. So, kind of going back to the basics.
Are you using? You are using kind of Western keys and things
Yeah.
like that. Scales. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's not so. But
Yeah.
what else I want to know is if there's anything in this music that you're learning that you think, oh, that's interesting. I want to carry that over into something that I write, or that I want to apply to something that I'm going to do in the future.
Well, at some point I would love to use Indian tabla.
Yeah.
As a foundation for the rhythm. At some point, I don't know, exactly when.
Should
I have
get one?
to play it is it's to me it's one of those instruments that you can't just casually play.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, no, you'd want somebody to really, really spend time learning the instrument, and you can easily tell if somebody's comfortable on the instrument or not. There's so many nuances, the rolling of the fingers and the textures and the timbre tones that they get from the drums. It's really remarkable.
Probably takes years to perfect.
Yeah, yeah. In
Well, just
fact,
like any instrument.
yeah, but this is a type of instrument that it's so, it's like you can't fake your way through it.
Is it the most essential instrument in this, or in this ensemble that you have, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would say. I mean,
Yeah?
being that there's only three of us,
I know, but
they're gonna, they're
are you
carrying the
as a
rhythm.
guitarist willing to give that up and say that there's another instrument that's actually maybe more essential?
Are you saying guitarists have big
No,
egos? Big
I'm
egos?
not saying
No.
anything like that. No.
No, you know what? I'm there to serve the music. And if here, because in certain parts of like, let's say, the set list, there's nothing rhythmically heavy going on,
Mhm.
and so it's all guitar.
Have you tried to play one of those other instruments just for
Uh,
fun? Have you tried to play the tabla or the harmonium?
No, harmonium. And because it's a keyboard based instrument, I could probably pick that up relatively. I should say, relatively easier than the other instruments.
But I mean,
Tabla,
have you
no.
asked one of the people that you're playing with if you could play theirs by any
No.
chance? No.
No.
No?
No,
Why not?
I'm there for focusing on the.
You don't want to try it?
Rehearsal. I mean, at some point, I'm sure.
No.
I'm sure I could always.
Actually, the reason I'm asking.
Why are you asking?
Well, I wanted to transition to another thing.
Oh, what do you got?
It was about playing other people's instruments. See what I did there?
Ah, yeah.
Actually, what I wanted to say was, have you ever had somebody play your stuff?
Yes. There have been, let's see, several times my amplifier, if I had an amp on stage, they were playing before, I had it up on stage already. They asked if they could use it. That's fine. I had no problem with it. Another time, there was a guitarist in a band before us. He broke string, did not have a backup guitar
Ugh. Or a string?
or string
Are you kidding me?
in the middle of
Well, I
a
guess
set.
in the middle of the set. Well,
Middle of a set, you're not going to sit there and change it. So I felt I generously offered a guitar. It's like, here,
Yeah.
continue. You can continue
That was
with the
pretty
set.
generous.
Yeah. So
Well, you didn't want to see a guy suffer. He's in his
No,
band, you know.
no.
Well, what string was it? Do you know? High E?
Yeah, I think it was a high E.
I mean, he could have gotten away with it.
He could have.
You were just being very generous.
He could have, but at the same time, there are certain players that if something is thrown off, they're not as easily adaptable to the situation. So for lack of a better term, it comes to a grinding halt.
Mm-hmm.
Their performance just stops. It's like, I don't have all 6 strings. I can't really continue until I have all 6 strings.
So they don't know how to compensate or
I mean, that's my
reroute, whatever it is they need to do.
These are just my observations, or at least at the moment. And because, frankly, the show did stop.
Yeah. Well,
It did. So I felt like, okay, here's a guitar. You can use this guitar.
so anyway.
So yes, I have. I've been in that situation where people view my.
Did you? What do you have any kind of? How do I want to put this?
Do I have any problem with anybody playing with my
Well,
instruments?
I guess there's that. Yeah, we can start with that.
Okay. Okay. Just for further clarification, the guitar that I let this person use was my backup.
Okay. Well, I would assume that you wouldn't give him your primary.
I wouldn't give my primary because I want to walk on stage with all the strings intact.
Right. Yeah. With
So
what you know of this guitarist and his record,
yeah,
he's breaking strings on his own stuff. While yeah, that's all. If that's all you got to go by.
Yes.
Then,
yes. So I didn't have a problem with it. It was my backup. Would I have let him use my primary? In this particular gig, no. I think they could have moved on, and in other ways, but it really depends on the specific situation and the specific musician that I'm dealing with. Because there's some other musicians who I know, for whatever reason, if they had to use my instrument, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't think twice about it. Some other musicians, you get the vibe where it's like, they're not really taking care of, they're not really taking care of their own. And boy, the last thing I want to see is, something happen to my instrument, my primary. And this is right before I go on stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is not just me having an instrument and not wanting to share it. It's just like, this is my primary tool, and I'm about to go on stage and, the next set. And if somebody needs it, that's where it gets to be like, all right.
Do you have any maybe unwritten rules or I guess considerations that either you use
Mm-hmm.
when you perhaps have used other people's instruments, or that you may expect other people to, some courtesies, some unwritten rules? What would some of those be as a guitarist or bassist?
Well, first
you've
of all,
played both.
not that it would be very common, but if I hand you an instrument, you're not going to do some alternate tuning. You're not going to start changing. You're not going to tune it tune it a half step down.
Even if they play in some metal band that uses drop D.
Well, I mean,
I
would think
drop D at least.
Well, the point is, if you're asking me what are the considerations or the common so then it's like, no, you're not going to retune the instrument to anything other than what they have. If they have drop tuning in place, you deal with it.
Okay. So even if they have an alternate tuning on their
well,
instrument,
here's the thing: then you probably wouldn't want to use it unless
Right.
unless you're skilled enough to adjust on the spot. But yeah, I mean, I would say that's not as common to deal with alternate tunings. I'm just saying, you don't be a dick and start changing everything.
Yeah.
More so, I think it when it applies to your amp. A lot of times if somebody brings their amp, they dial it in a particular way, and you got to be mindful of that. So for me, there have been times where it's not that I was, we were told there was a backline. All right, but the backline, let's say, wasn't the venues. The backline was just provided by another band who was happy to host, quote unquote, host the event, and you could use their gear as the backline. So my approach to that is, I have from my guitar to my pedal boards, I have so many tone changing capabilities. If I don't like the way it sounds, I'm gonna change something on my gear. If I can help it, I will not touch any settings on the amp.
Mm-hmm.
If they have it dialed
So
in their
when
way,
you're using their amp,
when I'm using theirs, so I would
even volume.
no volume is
Okay.
but
So
but
volume's okay.
yeah, volume change because that could change instantly if
You're talking tonal.
yeah
tonal settings.
tonal settings, right? Tonal setting volume changes are easily remedied, and by the sound guy, telling you what you need up or down. But tonally, I feel, well, first of all, they're not going to, let's just say if they providing the backline, they have it dialed in. There's a reason why they have it dialed in there. It's for their gear. Everything is set for them to play to make them happy with the sound. If I'm going to borrow that just for, let's say, a set before they go on, then I'm going to deal with all my tonal shaping capabilities on my gear, which there are a lot of. There's so many pedals and options to shape my tone. It's not going to be the tone maybe I'm used to playing, but then again, it's not my amp.
Right.
An amp is a very big part of your sound. So if you go in, if you use any other backline, if you use a venue's backline, then I'd say, yeah, feel free to,
right.
That's what it's there for.
Right.
But if it's another band providing that, I try to be respectful and touch nothing else other than the volume.
Well, what's interesting is that you might actually find a tone that you actually like too.
Maybe
through somebody else's amp with your stuff. You might go, hey, that was actually a tone that I haven't discovered yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible anyway.
It's possible,
Well, what about your pedal board? Would you let somebody use your pedal board? Or would that be something that's kind of like off limits for guitarists? I mean, I'm sure it's never really come up where somebody doesn't have a pedal board or needs to use them.
Well, here's the thing.
It's such a personalized thing. So.
It is, but the times people have used my pedal board is if we were in the middle of a set and maybe we had a guest come on stage to play a song.
Mm-hmm.
So if I offered up my instrument, my instrument goes with my setup. Pedal board's right there in line. You just kind of explain, all right, here's this, there's that. So in that case, yeah. But if you're talking about, a previous or a band before you doing a set, no, I think that's. I don't think that's
a little off limits. Huh?
For me, it's a little off limits because my pedals, I have it dialed in a particular way. Everything. It's very personal. If people start going over there and start, stepping on the pedals, changing the knobs, this and that, it's like, all right, where am I starting? And if it's again right before you go on stage, that's a little tight.
Yeah, I'm glad you're saying that because when it comes to drums,
yeah, you weren't leading this on. I couldn't tell.
No. When it comes to drums, I've also used obviously other people's gear for the same reasons. Maybe it's a band that's hosting and the drummer is, the band that's last oftentimes has their equipment that every previous band uses. And a lot of times the drummer allows the one or two bands previous to them to use basically the entire kit other than, and if you're a drummer out there and you don't know this, it's standard to use your own snare drum, your own cymbals, and your own kick pedal. Oh, and your own sticks. Okay? So kick pedal, cymbals, snare drum, sticks. Bring those with you, even if they say there's a backline there. I don't care if they say there's a whole entire kit there, don't bring anything. Bring your own cymbals. at least bring your own. I mean, that still is your sound, and try to make sure that. Well, here's what I do. If I am using somebody else's set, I do still lay off using too many toms because they're not mine. I'm given the courtesy to play somebody's kit. I'm using my own snare, so I have to worry about that. I can beat the crap out of my own snare. It's my own cymbals. That's fine. They're just sitting on their stands. The kick drum, it's not that big of a deal. It's not going to, you're not going to do a whole lot of damage on one set or, one gig to a kick drum. So basically, if I just stick to mostly those things and, you roll when you have to, you do a drum roll or whatever the music calls for, you do that. But you don't, beat the crap out of the toms.
Right.
I don't feel so bad. That's A. Because I say that because I have had people play my drums. In fact, I had a gig one time where there was a band playing before us. And we were the back line. I allowed them to use my drums, obviously. I had just that day it was either that day or the day before. I had brand new drum heads on.
Oh, nice.
Brand new. This guy beat my drums he was so loud, and he had, I don't know if he had 2B sticks, those big heavy fat sticks like John Bonham used. If he didn't have those, they looked like he used those because not only, you get marks on the toms, those little skid marks, but there were dents. Yeah, those dents that happen when you beat them so hard. They were all over my brand. All three of the toms that I had set up had dents in the brand new drum heads. And he didn't even apologize. He didn't say anything. He just played loud, beat them real hard, and, left.
You're welcome for witnessing my talent.
Yeah. Yeah. So I make it a point not to do that. I kind of make a conscious effort not to just play a little slightly different just because they're giving me, they're nice enough to allow me to use their set. I'm going to be nice enough not to do anything to damage their stuff. Or even if it's a drum head, I don't want to break it. I don't want to do any harm to anything. They're nice enough to let me use it. I'm going to play what I need to play, and that'll be it. Right? There will be other gigs where I'll have my own stuff and I can do what I want. Second, I never alter people's settings. For instance, when I sit down behind the drum set and, I play with my ride cymbal, fairly standard, like a lot of drummers would. It's to the, about elbow height to my right, above, near my floor tom. Pretty level right there, very comfortable. Some guys don't like that. Some guys like it at an angle or up higher or further to the right. Some guys might even put it on the other side. Okay? Not that I'm going to be using their ride cymbal, but the way they have their cymbal stands set up.
The angle.
Yeah, the angles and the heights and everything makes a difference. So I can't necessarily put my stuff where I normally have it. That's on me. That's on me. I think it's on me to adapt to them. They're letting me use their kit. They have it set up the way that they use it, and they're allowing me to use it, to borrow it temporarily. So it's on me to adapt to the cymbal heights. I got to figure out where I want to put the cymbals and what's going to be the best way for me to navigate so that I can play fine yet not disturb their settings. If it's a height with the snare drum, it stays the way it is. If they play, some guys like to play with a really high or really low hi-hat, let's say. I got to adapt. It sucks. Sometimes it really sucks.
I remember one gig we did, the house kit was set up by a very tall drummer. Right?
Yes.
And you were just reaching all over the place.
Yeah. Because I'm average height. I'm 5'9", 5'10", whatever. And this guy, he was really tall. But he had really long arms. Not only that, but he has really big cymbals. He had a huge set. He had like a 24-inch kit, a kick drum, and then his floor tom was 18 inches. His crashes were like 20 inches. They're huge, right?
Yeah.
Plus he had long arms, and then was 6, so he could just basically hit them easily. my crashes are 14-inch crash, and a 16-inch crash and a 20-inch ride. So my biggest cymbal is like as big as his smallest crash. You know what I mean? Or like one of his crashes. And so there were a couple of times when I went to hit a crash and I completely whiffed on it because it was too far away.
Actually, yeah, I remember. I remember when
I
that
went
gig.
there, swung at nothing. I hit nothing.
I remember you kept telling me you got to reach.
Yeah, I had to actually. There was a couple times I had to like kind of lean and reach over to hit a crash. Yeah, that was interesting. But I mean, I was not going to try to alter this guy's settings. So that's an extreme example, but I still had to do what I had to do. But like I said, in those situations, I'll just try to keep it snare, hi-hat, bass drum, and just do a pattern. And whatever I have to crash, I can crash on the ride if I need to or whatever. Right. Something that's close, whatever. Just adapt. You know, it's really aggravating. I've had some guys play my kit and just completely change all the settings. You know, change the cymbal stands. Not just one either, like all of them. Change the hi-hat. Like if they want it really high or really low. Change the height of the snare drum. Change the height of the all the cymbal stands. Change even where the way that the toms are facing or the angle of the toms. Dude, do not do that crap, man. That's bullshit. You know, like I'm letting you use my stuff. I shouldn't go sit down behind my own kit and feel like it's completely foreign. You know?
Yeah.
To where I have to take time and change all my settings. Of course, you know, if you have some of the stands will have locks on them where their settings, you know, you can just set it up and it's locked and it's ready in place. You know, I have some of that, but even still some angles aren't lockable.
Yeah. And I think to the point too, is that a lot of these gigs are not, you know, equipped with a bunch of stage hands and other people helping you adjust all this and helping every band adjust. Sometimes it's, you know, it's only the musicians. Not
to mention the time constraints.
Exactly.
You know, you don't have, you know, a lot of these places, especially if you are in any way familiar with gigs around LA, if you've played some of those gigs where you get an hour or less,
like the showcase gigs.
Yeah, and you're up, and then you got to get off, and somebody's up, and they got a time limit. They got to roll it. You roll you in. Let's go. You don't have time to sit there and change any settings to get all that comfortable. I mean, usually, it's going to be rare that you're using your set where somebody messes. But even still, like, if you are, there's not time for that. There's other things going on, and somebody needs to mic your set too. You know,
but the point, regardless of the details of a particular gig, I think the bigger point is that if you're going to use somebody else's kit, just try to be courteous and not change all the settings that would make it so difficult.
I think that should be a written rule. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, I would. I was going to say, well, it's probably an unwritten rule, but I guess a lot of people aren't.
It needs to be said. It needs to be said definitely, because I've had it enough times where people have either. Well, I've seen it happen to other people too. Mm-hmm. It isn't just me. I've seen other people allow, you know, the drummers to use their kit, and they went ahead and changed. I've seen it happen enough times to where it needs to be said. You need to know this stuff. It's bad etiquette. To me, it's bad etiquette. It's. I don't want to say that rude. It might be too strong to say it's rude.
Maybe it's ignorant to certain to you know, protocols and certain manners about approaching it. No, you know, for me, going back to how we opened up this conversation about somebody. Remember, I let somebody use my guitar. My whole thing is, if you're a gigging guitarist, you know, you always bring a backup.
Right.
Bring a backup guitar.
Right.
You know, yes, you should always have extra strings, but if you're in the middle of a set, you know, you're not going to stop your set to change a string or add a string. Either that or deal with it. Mm-hmm. Know how to play with 5 strings. You know, there's always way if you really want to be serious about it. But the best thing to do is just to always have a backup. Always have a backup guitar. Now, in some ways, I can take things to the extreme and have a backup of a lot of different things, just in so many different ways. But at the bare minimum, have a backup guitar.
Mm-hmm. And a backup cord.
Yeah. Yeah, all those little accessories. There's no excuse not to have them. They take up no room.
Yeah, and if you find yourself kind of doing any of these things we're talking about or not doing, whatever the case may be, you got some work to do, I think, or some notes to take, or some just mental notes to make about your next gig.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, and I think if you really want to take a step back, I mean, ask yourself, what would make this particular gig go smoother? How could we, help each other as musicians? Treating each other's gear with a little more, what's the word? A little more respect to the individual settings that were done. So that the owner of the instrument doesn't have to, spend so much time reverting it back to the way it was, where you, as the one who's essentially borrowing the instrument, could maybe you're the one that takes a little bit more effort, or to get through the gig if it's not to your perfect settings.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to do a little bit of sacrificing.
Yeah.
And it's not ideal, but you got to remember sometimes, hey, those gigs where I don't have to bring my entire kit, it's kind of nice,
Yes.
So
That's the price you pay.
yeah, it's the price you pay. If I only have to carry, remember, snare drum, cymbals, sticks, and kick drum pedal. If I only have to carry that when I can carry it all at once into a gig, hey, I can deal with having to reach for a cymbal here or there. It's nice. So, just deal with that. It's okay.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like the golden rule: do unto others.
As you would have them do
unto you.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like do unto others instruments, as you would have them do unto yours. So
yeah. No, I think it's a very, very good point. Something that we just need to have more courtesy all the way around.
etiquette. It's kind of etiquette.
Yeah.
And it's more professional. I think you'll be viewed at by others as being that much more professional if you adhere to certain things like that. If you don't need to be told, or I don't want to say be told or asked or reminded to do certain things like this, it's just your status will go up, I think.
Yeah.
Among the community.
Yeah, exactly. And in that line of thinking, in a future episode, I think it'd be good to talk about just what we bring to the gig. What's in, like, for example, what's in my gig bag or my gig box.
Yeah.
All the things which could really just literally save the gig. Most of the times you're not talking though, any extreme. Maybe it just makes either the gig much more easier to get through. Maybe it's easy to help somebody else out. But I have a whole list of items that I think it could be helpful if more people.
I think it'd be fun. Be like, what's in your bag?
What's in your bag?
Yeah, you're on a gig. You're going to a gig. What's in your bag, Francis? You go.
I got a whole list.
I know you do.
Yeah.
Not only that, but you have a whole bag, and then you have a whole bag full of backups, and then you have another bag full of like nice to have, but not necessary. But if I need them, that'll be fun. Like you have all that stuff. It's fun. That'll be a fun episode.
Yeah, maybe we could open up the box.
Yeah. What's in the box, Francis? What's in the box?
Yeah. So if you have any comments about this topic or any other topic that you would love to discuss or have us discuss, just hit us up. Our email is podcast@tuneupandjam.com. You can also hit us up on all the social media sites: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and we're starting to post our episodes on YouTube.
YouTube.
So we can be found there. Other than the usual places, tuneupandjam.com and iTunes, etc. So hit us up, spread the word. If you have any interest in coming into the studio and joining us for a conversation, or maybe demonstrate an instrument you want to play, or if you have songs, if you're a songwriter and musician, want to come on and play, it's doors open.
Yeah, or if you want to send us some music and you want to.
Yeah, you don't have to come in here. Yeah, send us music and we'll play it and talk about it. Or
we'll listen to it first.
We'll promote you.
Yeah,
how's that?
We'll promote it, and hopefully we'll play it.
Yeah.
And not to mention, maybe you can't come in. Maybe you're not in the L.A. or Southern California area. But if you still wanted to perhaps be on with us, we can always figure out a Skyping situation or something like that.
Oh
maybe.
yeah.
And we can have people guest on with us, maybe bring up a topic with us, discuss some things, challenge us on something, whatever it is they've heard before that they don't like. They want to give us a piece of their mind. Bring it.
Yeah. Hey, gotta love technology with Skype.
That's right.
And even if you don't have Skype or don't want to deal with Skype, there's this thing called the telephone.
Telephone. Doesn't even need to be a landline.
Yeah, but it could be.
Could be that thing too.
Some people are asking, what's a landline?
I know.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, hit us up and, we'll just spread the word and just build this music community and keep on doing it.
Keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. All right. Anything else, Richie?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Later. We're
Bye.
out. Bye.